Hello traders, welcome to the Nexoel Trading Hub YouTube channel. So we are going to be looking at the weekly Forex forecast for the coming week. If you're new to the channel and wish to be staying updated with our weekly Forex forecast, you can do well to subscribe to the YouTube channel and also join the free Telegram community where you can have access to chart analysis. So as we always start off from the dollar index, this is actually the weekly time frame. We've actually carried out the review for the last week Forex forecast, and the video is already made available in the YouTube channel. If you wish to actually assess that, to look at how price delivered based on the forecast that was carried out last week, you can do well to check the channel and then assess that video. So now for the coming week, we can see here in the dollar index, we can see that price actually took out this sell side liquidity. So we have a sell side liquidity rate here. And then we can see that the candle actually closed above this sell side liquidity that was rated. So we're having the projection of price to the upside. We had a bearish move during the week, but then price closed in a bullish condition. So here we are, we have just the way we analyze, expecting to see rejection at the 25% of the monthly candle week, which is in confluence to this fair value gap we're seeing here. Now we can see that rejection, and then here we are, price closed above the low of all the sell side liquidity resting here. Now we have the weekly breaker. Actually, I just made reference to the volume, the candle body, and then left the week because this is going to actually be a large zone. So I just considered the volume and marked that as the weekly breaker. So we are expecting to see more bullish move in the coming week. So I want to see price trade to the upside to this weekly breaker. Then this would determine if we should expect the fall of price in coming weeks to the downside. So I'm not really expecting to see price return to this weekly fair value gap above here, but I just marked that for reference purposes. So we could see price come to this weekly breaker or to the 25% of this week, and then we could see price closed below the weekly breaker zone, or we could see price close above. So we want to see what happens within the weekly breaker and also the 25% of this week, which may face mitigation. And then that would help us determine for the coming weeks if price is going to fall to the downside or we see price push to the upside. But for this coming week, we're expecting to see a rise of price to the weekly breaker based on the weekly time frame. So let's check out the daily time frame. So here we are in the daily time frame. We can neatly see the rate of the sell side liquidity. There's relatively equal lows, price rated through it. Now you can see we have confluence of the 25% of the monthly candle week to this other block resting here. You see we have this down close candle that sponsored this further move of price to the upside. So price returned to mitigate it because the return of this did not mitigate this other block. So we have price neatly returned to probably mitigate this other block, and then you can see the rejection to the upside. Now this is our weekly breaker region. So this is actually buy side liquidity, which is also chemical inducement. So we're expecting to see bullish move to the upside to sweep this buy side liquidity. Price should return to the weekly breaker. And you can see in the daily time frame, we have this unmitigated institutional order flow, which when you go to the weekly time frame, is going to be that weak region of the weekly bearish candle. So we're expecting to see price return, and then price may actually push further to mitigate this daily order flow before we are going to have the fall of price. So we're expecting to see price take out this buy side liquidity. But definitely, before that happens, we want to see price trade downwards a little before we have the bullish projection to the upside. But this is our expectation, to see the return of price into this zone. price may wick through to mitigate the order flow, and then we have price close below the breaker after mitigating also the unmitigated order flow. So let's drop to the 4-hour time frame to further look at price delivery. So here we are in the 4-hour time frame. So if you can remember, last week we had this channel in our forecast. Actually, there is the review video that I've already reviewed how price played out last week. We expected to have the return of price to actually mitigate this resistance trend line, and then price should fall to the downside. And you can see that is what we have here. Now, this is the weekly breaker region. You can also see that your mitigated order flow region from the daily is also unmitigated in the 4-hour time frame. You can see this is the buy move before the sell move to the downside. So now you can see price broke through the trend line. So we are expecting to see price return, and then we see the rise of price to the upside to come raid the buy side liquidity to mitigate this unmitigated order flow. And don't forget, we have the weekly breaker region here. We want to see price rejection between these zones, and then we would anticipate to see the structural price is going to form here within the lower time frame to determine more bearish move to the downside for the dollar index. So we're expecting to see raid of this buy side liquidity, but we want to see pullback to the downside for price to mitigate this zone and then push to the upside. Let's check the 1-hour time frame. So here in the 1-hour time frame, you can also see our unmitigated order flow region here. Now we can see price giving us the bullish move, price facing rejection at this order block. So we could see return to the downside before we see price project to the upside. Then we are going to have these regions in view to determine a bearish move to the downside, which is actually the weekly breaker and then the unmitigated institutional order flow region. So this is all I have to show us, guys, about the dollar index. So we're going to check out the GBPUSD and also the EURUSD, and then we're going to determine more on gold and consider the USDJPY and also the USDCAD. So guys, this is actually our GBPUSD chart. So above here we have this monthly fair value gap. So last week we expected to see price push to the upside to raid this buy side liquidity, because we can see that price mitigated this order block, fill up this fair value gap. So we anticipated to see price raid the buy side liquidity, but then GBP had a very poor volatility to the upside last week. And in the review video, I actually showed us how and why that actually happened. So in case you really want to know about that and you've not seen the review video, you can do well to check the weekly review video. The link is actually in the description section. So for the forecast purpose, let's head back to the charts. So now we can see that last week actually swept the previous week candle high. So we have buy side liquidity rates to the upside. So for the coming week, we want to see the fall of price to the downside. And I want to see price straight to the downside to this target first, before we can determine the possibility of price pushing more further to the downside. So this is a target in which I want to see price drop down to based on the weekly time frame. When we drop to the lower time frame, you're going to see why this level is actually the determined level for us to anticipate the push of price to the downside. But definitely before we have the further bearish momentum, we want to see price gives a bullish move to the upside before we expect the fall of price to the downside. When we drop down to the lower time frame, we're going to identify those zones. So let's go to the daily time frame. So here we are in the daily time frame. So we have the sweep of last week high point. So we have buy side liquidity rate. Then you can now see price closed below the high created in the previous week. So we are expecting bearish move to the downside. Now you can see that expected region where I want to see price drop to before we could determine the possibility of a push of price to the upside or price breaches through this unmitigated daily order block and then decides to move further to the downside. So we want to trade to this unmitigated daily order block. So meaning for the GBPUSD pair for the coming week, we're expecting to see more bearish move to the downside. But before that bearish move happens, we want to see price push to the upside, gives a pullback and possibly sweep this high point, and then we see price falls to the downside. We want to see price possibly sweep the high of Friday, and then we see price continues to the downside to this particular zone marked out here. So let's go to the 4-hour time frame. So here we are in the 4-hour time frame. You can see our channel. So we have price pushing to the upside, a bullish markets condition, and then price dropped to the downside, broke this swing low points. So we can see that this is the low point that sponsored the move to the upside, a bruce structure here, and then now we can see price return and violated that low point, broke through the low points. So we identified this bearish candle as a breaker. So we're expecting to see the return of price, and then you can see we have a confluence of a fair value gap resting here. So we want to see price return into this zone, and then we ride with price to the downside. You can see in the 4-hour time frame, we also have this region as an unmitigated order flow region because this is the sell move before the buy move to the upside. So we want to see the pullback, and then we see price falls to the downside in the GBPUSD pair. So guys, let's head to the EURUSD pair. So this is the EURUSD from the weekly time frame. We have the sell side liquidity resting here. Now we have the rate of this buy side liquidity, price rated last week high and also this candle high points. We have high above here, we have this order block, and then we have this fair value gap in the weekly time frame. So last week, I actually told us we want to expect price push to the upside, read this buy side liquidity, and possibly also rate this to mitigate this zone. So now we can see that we didn't really have more of like an aggressive movement of price to the upside. So we see price rated this buy side liquidity and price closed below this high points. So we are expecting to further see price push to the downside. So you can see here we have this weekly inversion fair value gap. But based on the lower time frame, which I'm going to drop further to the lower time frame to show us why the expectation is to see price return to this target. And then we can now determine if price will continue further to the downside or we could see price reverse to the upside. And now you can see we have the weekly inversion fair value gap. Now we have this week here. So we have this implied fair value gap region here. So I marked the 50% of this implied fair value gap region. And then we actually discovered this price level here. So I'm expecting to see price drop to this level. Then we could determine the possibility of further push of price to the downside or price reverses to the upside. So if you're going to be trading the coming week, this is a price level you should consider for your take profits. But definitely, as you guys all know, we should expect a rise, a bullish rise to the 25% of this candle level or the 50%, anywhere price chooses to go to. We're going to drop the lower time frame to identify the likely zone. And then we see price drop to the downside. So let's go to the daily time frame. So here we are in the daily time frame. We have a buy side liquidity rate. So you can see why I actually marked at that level, which is also in confluence with the implied fair value gap region. So we want to see the drop of price to this level. You can see we have this down close candle before the bullish move to the upside that raided the buy side liquidity. So we want to see the return of price to this level first, though we have the weekly inversion fair value gap. But let's actually play safe and target this price level for take profits. So this is what I have to show us, guys, in the daily time frame for the Euro USD. So let's drop to the 4-hour time frame where we can identify zones for likely entry. So here we are in the 4-hour time frame. We have this channel. Now you can see also in the 4-hour time frame, this is an unmitigated order flow zone. The sell move before the buy move to the upside, and then you can see price has actually been bullish in this condition. Now price faced resistance here, and then price fell to the downside, broke through the lower trend line. And now you can see we want to see the return of price to this level in confluence to this inversion fair value gap. We want to see price pull to the upside, and then we actually drop further to more lower time frames. Look out for entry models, and then we trade price to this particular unmitigated order flow zone in the 4-hour time frame. So you can see actually the price level you should anticipate to trade price. So this is all about the Euro USD. So let's check out the gold. So guys, this is actually the gold here. So we can see that we have buy side liquidity rate. And hey guys, before we continue with the gold analysis, if you're new to this YouTube channel and you've been gaining value so far with this particular video, and you wish to be staying updated with our coming contents, then please kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel, like and also share our video. You can also do well to join the free Telegram community where we actually send chart setups for further clarification of the weekly Forex focus for the subscribers in the free Telegram community. So now you can see this is the weekly time frame for the gold here. So we have the rate of this buy side liquidity. Last week took out this buy side liquidity. Now we can see we have this weekly fair value gap. We have this mitigation block because this did not sponsor for the push of price to take out this sell side liquidity. So we have this fair value gap resting here. So this is actually a long-term zone if we're going to actually see price fall to the downside. So since we're expecting bullish ride in the dollar index for the coming week before we anticipate the likely bearish move, so we are going to be seeing fall of price in GBP, in euro, in gold. So first we want to target this price level, the 25% of this weekly candle week, as the first region where we want to target for our take profits before we could determine the further push of price this weekly fair value gap. So I want to see price gives us a pullback to this expected high points of this price level, 2430, or we could see price may just return and mitigate this candle's high points, and then we want to now see price falls to the downside. So this should be our target price level, that's the 2380 level for the take profits. So let's drop to the daily time frame. So here we are in the daily time frame. We have a rate of buy side liquidity, and then we can see price is now closing below the buy side liquidity rate. So what we're going to see is we have this candle to the downside and then left this fair value gap. So we could see price push the downside to mitigate this fair value gap before we have a rise in price to the upside. So this is a demand level where we could see price push to the downside into this fair value gap, and then we find price return to the upside. Weeks are also gap in the market. So considering this week we have this expected high point and price level, we want to see price return to, and then we see price falls to the downside. So guys, let's drop to the 4-hour time frame. So this is the 4-hour time frame, and mind you, this is just a very quick analysis, very quick focus to just guide you guys on what to expect in the coming week. So here we are, you can see we have this bullish move, and then price have broken through the trend line to the upside. So now we are seeing movement to the downside. Now we're expecting to see that price return to the upside to mitigate this particular demand zone that was violated. We want to see price mitigate this level, and then we determine more bearish move to the downside. So from the 4-hour time frame, we have this unmitigated institutional order flow. Price may not really return to this level. So let's look at this violated order block, this demand, and then it's going to react as a supply. So we want to see price return, and then we expect to see a fall of price to the downside. So we know we actually have a daily demand here. So we should expect to possibly see price just reject to the upside immediately, or price fills up the daily fair value gap. Then we can look out for structure in far lower time frame to trade price to the upside to this level, and then we determine structure again in far lower time frame to sell off this particular level. So let's drop to the 1-hour time frame. So you can see in the 1-hour time frame, here we are in the 1-hour time frame. So you can see this is the pullback before the bullish move to the upside. So price could return to mitigate this zone and then fall off to the downside, not necessarily return to the 4-hour unmitigated order flow. So this is what I have to show us, guys, in gold. So let's check out the USDJPY and then the USDCAD. So guys, this is the USDCAD, the 1-week time frame. If you guys can vividly remember, in one of the weekly forecasts, we expected to see the sweep of this sell-side liquidity. We wanted to see price mitigate this candle's week. Confidence with this order block we're seeing here, and then we'll further see price push to the upside. Now you can see how price neatly delivered, price mitigated, swept the sell-side liquidity. Though price did not return to the mean threshold, price mitigated the week actually, and then we have price rejects to the upside. Now you can see last week we had a bullish move to the upside. So now we're going to expect further bullish move to the upside. So want to see price raid this buy side liquidity. We want to see a push of price to the upside. Then from there we could determine what could happen in the coming weeks. So guys, now this is the weekly bullish candle. But before price sweeps this buy side liquidity, we want to see price gives us a sense of return to the downside before price further push to the upside to rate this buy side liquidity. So I'll be looking for the push to this price level, the 37,067 level. So before we could see price push to the upside to rate the buy side liquidity. So this is actually my anticipation. So let's drop to the daily time frame. So here in the daily time frame, you can see in confluence to this doji candle, price return swept the sell side liquidity. You can see we had the bullish move we've been expecting in the USDCAD. Now what you're going to see is this is where we have this down close candle before further bullish move to the upside. Now price is facing rejection at this rejection block. So want to see price pull back to the downside to come mitigate this price level or sweep Friday's low point, and then we see price reject to the upside to raise this buy side liquidity. So this is just a projection we're anticipating for just the coming week. When price delivers, we're going to have a review and then consider what price is going to do in the next coming week. So let's drop to the 4-hour time frame. So this is the 4-hour time frame. You can see we have price trending to the upside. What you're going to see here in the 4-hour time frame is that we have price respecting this order block. You can see we're having this rejection. So we have price closing below the order block. And now we are expecting to see the possibility that price will push further to retest the trend line. That is why I said from the daily time frame, we could expect price will sweep Friday's low point. So we have price mitigate this implied fair value gap, and then we see price push to the upside to rate the buy side liquidity. So this zone is actually marked out from the 1-hour time frame. So let's drop to the 1-hour time frame. So here we are in the 1 hour time frame. You can see we have the down close candle before the bullish move to the upside. You can see we have pool of liquidity resting here. So we could see price drop to the downside. I can see the reaction of price at the order block we marked out from the 4 hour time frame. So price took out this liquidity here. Price mitigated the order block on the 4 hour time frame. Now you can see the rejection here. So price is reacting at this order block, pushing further to the upside, but yet we're still seeing form of rejection to the downside. So we want to see price drop to this level, and then we can determine a bullish ride to the upside for price to come read the buy side liquidity in the USDCAD. So this is what I have to show us in the USDCAD. So let's check the last pair, which is the USDJPY. So guys, this is the USDJPY here. This is just going to be a very quick one. So we can see this is a weekly time frame. We have price to cut this buy side liquidity. And then now we are seeing price returning to fill this fair value gap. Now price have mitigated this order block. This candle swept to the low of this candle, also the low of this candle, to cut liquidity of this week, and then price push to the upside. Now we can see price return mitigated the order block, close above the consequent encroachment of this order block. You can see price closed above. So we should still be expecting bullish move to the upside. But first, we want to see the return of price to the downside before we see that push of price to the upside. So I'll be targeting to take my profit at this particular candle open of price here, though price could go further to sweep the buy side liquidity. So let's drop to the daily time frame. So this is the daily time frame. You can see this is the order block zone we marked out from the weekly time frame. So we are still expecting price to give us a push of price to the upside, though we have this supply zone here in the daily time frame. But we already know that the higher time frame is more stronger than a lower time frame. We know that price is reacting at weekly demand block, so we should expect that price has the tendency to sweep through this supply zone to the upside. So let's drop to the 4 hour time frame. So here we are in the 4 hour time frame. So you can see within the weekly order block zone, we have this order block here, and then you can see price return mitigated that. You can see we have this order block zone here, and we have fair value gap to that, price return, and then you can see price push to the upside. So we want to see price further push to this price level here. Then we can determine if there's going to be the possibility of a reversal of price to the downside. So for the USDJPY, just the way we are expecting bullish ride in the dollar index, so I believe we should expect a bullish ride in the USDJPY before any form of a bearish movement to the downside. And then you can see this is the order flow, the last buy move before this bearish move. So we want to see price push to this level. Then we determine if there's going to be a bearish movement of price to the downside. So we want to see the return of price to this fair value gap resting here. Price should return, mitigate this fair value gap, and then we see price push to the upside. So this is all I have to show us, guys, for the coming week. So guys, just the way I'll always say, you should always utilize lower time frame entry models to actually execute your trade. So guys, see you in the free Telegram community where I share updates regarding price delivery. So cheers guys, and God bless you all.